Hello, this is Rita, and this is me and my mommy's podcast, and then my mommy, and there's me, and then just talking about this stuff, and then we tap dancing because this is the tap dancing autism podcast, and there's a bunch of animals, and I'll be trying to in my hair, and there's bunch of sand, and oh shit. Also, there's also that stuff, and I'm gonna make it a little bit. Oh, that kind of the old, yes, black and light stuff and that's busy. Oh, and those are them muffled. A boots are amazing. Also, there's me. I'm trying not to have a panic attack. Also, this is the podcast about me. I do that and kept dancing and blah, blah, blah. I did ADHD and that thing. Also, this make you a normal pup.
Hi, welcome to Friends Friday here at Leta Tap Styles. Today we have Rebecca Engle. I hope I got that last name right. I am terrible at last names. Rebecca, I'm also terrible at introducing our guests. Do you mind introducing yourself to our audience like you're meeting them at a coffee shop?
Sure. I'm Rebecca Engle. I am a special education teacher, a 10-time author, and 6-time poet. I also help people navigate the special education systems and laws and policies in place.
When I was reading everything you do, I'm just like, I don't know if we can cover it all in an hour. I may have to go, hey, back later. Because it's amazing. I mean, being a poet, being a 10-time author, you were also like Leta, you were nonverbal for a long time, correct?
Yeah. Yes, I was.
Um, a lot of Leta has a dance studio. A lot of our parents are shocked to find out that being diagnosed as a nonverbal as a child, young child, doesn't mean you're nonverbal the whole time. When did you start going? That sounded wrong. I'm stopping that. That sounded so ableist the way to say that. Can you discuss a little bit about the one for this? I'm bad. Sorry, Rebecca. I'm just interested because I know kids, Leta, especially when you guys become verbal, you guys can become verbal. How did that work for you? Were you like, did it come in little chunks or did it come all at once? Were your parents like, she's never going to learn to speak? Does that kind of make sense what I'm getting at?
So when I was 4, my teacher looked at my mom and said, "Your daughter will never be able to, talk. So I don't know what you're doing and my behavior wise and all this stuff." And my mom said, "Give me 2 weeks." Within that 2 weeks, I said 22 words. And following that, those were the 22 words I used in most instances, besides the words "not today." Whenever I went to therapy, I would tell my therapist "not today." And as I grew older, when I became 5, I never stopped talking. I was in speech therapy until I was 11. And then after that, I feel like they kind of just gave up on me being able to say my R's correctly. Because even now, I'm like, whoa, every time I have to say an R. So
Leta's laughing because they kicked her out of speech therapy because of the same thing. They're like, well, she might learn her art. You can say that into your microphone. It is an audio too.
I said, "I
I know with Leta, it was dance that took off because she was nonverbal up until she was 6. Her physical therapist was like, her stem is a complicated 3-point tap dance move. Put her in dance. Then I don't suggest this for parents because she was so good at tap. They put my 7-year-old in with middle schoolers. So as she was learning language, she was in with middle school and high schoolers. You can guess. Everyone's like, you could have had. Didn't you enjoy the baby talk? She went from nonverbal.
never be."
No, she went from nonverbal to talking like a teenager, and that was not fun.
I was the same way with soccer. So when I was a little girl, I was a soccer player, and then they were like, "You should try indoor soccer." And so my mom threw me in an indoor soccer league, and I was surrounded by kids that were older than me, teenagers. I was like 8, I had never played indoor soccer. And my coach said, go. And I just started kicking the ball around and going crazy. So that was,
And it does change how you grow up being surrounded by older kids.
yes.
Let me make sure my mic's on for this. I was really interested because we don't have very many special ed teachers who also are autistic themselves. How does that influence and change how you approach your job?
I feel like so many days I go to work and I feel like I'm a teacher for both the teachers and the kids. And I think that having that mindset is positive in some aspects, but I also feel it's harmed me in other aspects because I feel like I'm so busy correcting behavior management and issues that I see general education teachers using with my sped friends that I don't get to enjoy the kids as much some days because I'm so busy and so living in fear of the traumas that they're gonna have from their um teachers who don't necessarily understand their needs, not because they don't want to, just because there is a lack of professional development for general education classroom teachers that works with special ed populations, because so many times you see just, well, you have a special education teacher for that, you don't have to know it. And I know in my instance, a lot of the time I hear the biggest thing that I think I've changed is the commentary on, well, you just had a break, you were at lunch. You just had a break, you were at recess. And I still sometimes hear that. And I'm like, that was a academic break, not an emotional processing break. I tell my coworkers, I said, when my kids take a break, I ask them if they even want me in the room.
Uh, I mean, I completely understand that part. It's being around people is sometimes very tiring when you're autistic. I know with Leta, she had a lot of dance teachers who I try to be nice. She's 13. She's not nice anymore. Okay, you can.
Hurry us, what part? Imagine not understand. Why do people think us? Wait, I'm not sweet. I'm not sweet. I'm not sweet. I am as
Okay,
sweet as
calm.
that.
But you had a lot of her dance teachers. One, they think they're educators, and a lot of my friends are professors or the education department guys. And I'm sitting there going, dear dance teachers, if you don't have an education background, like at college, you don't quite know everything you're trying to say. Um, but they also Googled, instead of coming to me, they Googled autism. They Googled Leta has severe dyslexia, and they Googled dyslexia. You go,
I also can't say my last name right, and I was the one going to speech therapy, and yet they couldn't say rundown. And I was the one going to speech therapy, and they couldn't say rundown. Or spell my name right.
she did also get a lot of dance teachers telling her she was spelling her name wrong, and they told me I was spelling it wrong, and I'm like, I put it on her birth certificate. I think I know how I was spelling it.
I'm so
But
sad your last name wasn't your last name. They also tried to explain to me how marriage was on the last name part, and I had to tell them that your last name isn't rundown.
I hyphenated and then dropped. The bank was like, your last name's too long. You get to go by your maiden name. So I went by my maiden name. And dance teachers think they know everything. Um, one of the biggest issues we had was hey, we Googled autism, we Googled dyslexia, so we know what it is. I know when she was in this, do you ever run into general ed teachers that are like, I used Google today?
Yeah, I do. I think too, I get a lot of, well, I've taught this before, so I know what I'm doing. Or I've had an autistic student. This isn't my first autistic student, so I know what I'm doing. Or I've taught special ed, so I know what I'm doing. And it's like, but how do you live special ed?
Yeah.
Like I can teach. a lot of things, but if I haven't lived it, am I giving the same perspective as somebody who has, right? Um, I can talk about teaching an African American student. I can talk about teaching an Asian student. I can talk about their culture, but I'm not a part of it. I mean, I'm white, right? Like I haven't lived their life. I can't give that same perspective.
A lot. Yeah. She's like, I like this person. A lot of the issues we had with Leta, which I think probably go into the school system too, because I've done so much advocacy within this public school system for military families. We had, well, stimming isn't an autistic thing. Well, looking people in the eye isn't something autistic kids don't do, because I've had other autistic kids. And then you get a little annoyed with your teachers.
Like seriously. At least at 6, I knew the difference between a rabbit and a hare. Between the rabbit and a...
Okay. Yeah, it's because that's one of your autistic fun things is looking at zoology and learning about animals. And
One's very much taller and skinnier than the other, and the other's chubbier and fluffier.
um, do you ever feel like you're having to explain simple things like the teachers who are like, well, if she's not looking me in the eye, she must be disrespecting me. And I'm like, I'm 43 and I don't want to look you in the eye.
Yes, I see that all the time. I see you're not looking at me, which means you're not listening, and they'll define listening as looking in the eyes. And I see that every day. And no matter how much I argue it, I get told I'm wrong. It drives me insane. I hate eye contact. I was attacked for it in my undergrad. Actually was told I couldn't clinical teach simply due to my eye contact problems and how my words were in my mouth when I conveyed them. So um I had to go through an alternative certification program simply due to my lack of eye contact, which was $4,000 extra that I didn't have. Um, but yeah, I hear that all the time.
The other one we got was, like I said, one of her biggest stim is a complicated 3-point tap move. And the amount of teachers who are like, we can correct it and we'll make it where it's perfect and I'll correct how she's doing it. And I'm sitting there going, have you looked at stimming? And they're like, well, yeah, just because it's subconscious doesn't mean I can't, correct the move she's making.
Yeah, my common stim was slapping my arms. And I've seen other people stimming and I've never thought about changing or correcting it. I have a little girl right now and her stimming is this, like she flips the marker in her
Like,
hand but she does it in her desk, like in her lap. And I hear all the time, well, she's not paying attention. So the alternative was to take all of her stuff out of her desk and leave her with nothing. So of course, an alternative to doing that, she's finding things like her pant strings or, and ripping her shoes apart or playing with her shoelaces or because everything in her desk was her stimming material and now she don't have it. And the teacher spends so much time correcting the fact she's stimming with a pencil that I'm like, no wonder they're not learning and they're failing their quizzes because um it's not just the autistic kids that are failing their assessments. It's kids across the board.
uh, I did notice that in her dance classes was they were not, how do I put this nicely? They were sickling. They were doing other things they shouldn't have been doing because the teacher should have been looking at that and correcting that. But they're spending so much time on Leta.
My eyes wandering distracts no one. I don't know why they thought my eyes wandering was distracting anyone. It distracts no one. No one. That makes sense at the feet to distract anyone.
I mean, I'm not really sure what the eyes wandering have to do with anything, but I've only been living this life for 43 years. We also got a lot of, because she has severe dyslexia, teachers were making, in dance class, making her read in front of people. And they were like, well, she's just being lazy. If she would If she would just focus, if she would just work on it, um, I'm guessing you see that too. And I had some dance teachers, not to be mean to neurotypical parents, but they would come in and go, well, the neurotypical parents are forcing their kids to just read.
Yeah. In my multiple years of being a pre-K teacher, then moving to third, fourth, and fifth, and tutoring and all of that, I've worked with plenty of dyslexia kiddos, and I've heard that over and over again. And it drives me insane. I don't have dyslexia, but I did a amazing training called the Experience Dyslexia Training. And you experience the frustration levels of dyslexia. You don't necessarily experience dyslexia because they can't, change your brain, but you experience the same frustration levels. And I literally remember parents of dyslexic kiddos throwing stuff across the room because they were so aggravated trying to read and trying to write with this like we had to write into a mirror. Like we could only look at a mirror and then we had to write down on paper. And then we did like an activity where we had to read a book. But it was all symbols instead of words. And you had to memorize what those symbols aligned with words. And you only had like 10 minutes to like dissect this whole symbol. Then it was like a full book, like, like a full chapter book like this, but with all symbols.
That, yeah, sounds about right. With her severe dyslexia, she also does her eye trackings from right to left, top to bottom. And trying to explain that to dance teachers. And I'm wondering if you ever have to have a discussion as a special ed teacher with general ed teachers, though having had general ed teachers, I'm guessing the answer is yes. What all of this is and how many are like, well, I looked at the lesser side because I don't have nearly as bad of dyslexia as she and my sister have. But I looked at the lesser side and everything should be where the easy kids have it because I honestly think my dyslexia is the easy version of dyslexia. Do you have to ever explain to teachers the spectrum of all of the special ed needs?
Yes. I have, and I've even had to do that with special ed teachers. I mean, it's crazy. And then even when I was in school, I remember getting in a ninth grade, I got an assignment back and it said, 90, you lost 10 points, learn how to talk. Like written on the assignment. That's what I got back. And I had the integumentary system. So you can imagine that word in panic in front of a crowd. Probably not my strongest word. I still can't say it. I'm like, what the system? But anyway, you can imagine yeah. And I came up to this teacher and I was like, by the way, I had this speech impediment. Like I was nonverbal, like part of my life. And she was like, well, you don't have an IEP or 504 because at this time I didn't because I was almost a straight A student. Why would I? And they and the accommodations were like extended test time. I didn't need that. Um and I needed understanding people who were okay with a speech impediment. they um and I said this to her and she was like, well, I don't think you really have that. Like there's no way. And I was like, okay, like whatever. Like I'm not gonna fight you, but yeah, I've seen it all.
When Leta was diagnosed, I made her neurologist and her developmental ped come to the IEP meeting with us because she was in private school, but the school system, you want
Boy, right, something. Boy, everyone tried to tell females they just like this, but like hell, I didn't even know what crushes or boyfriends or girlfriends were yet. So why would you even explain that to little toddlers?
I should probably explain that. While we were all slightly more concerned about the fact that Brevard County Schools wouldn't give Leta speech because she was nonverbal, so they decided she didn't qualify for speech therapy.
Oh,
The
okay.
preschool teacher was, because she went to a Montessori school, one of the boys was throwing stuff and they were told, oh, it's okay by the school system. Leta, that was not aggressive. He's a boy. He has autism. He's going to throw stuff. Leta, being a girl, she was having meltdowns because she didn't understand you need to go to the bathroom before we go out to the playground for recess. And her teacher's like, I need help. I don't know how to communicate with her. What can the school system give me to communicate with her? And in the middle of the IEP meeting, her preschool teacher blew up because she was definitely not from the public school system. And Brevard County School's like, oh, we didn't know she was having meltdowns. We'll write her down as being aggressive. Because as a girl with meltdowns, she was aggressive.
Okay.
But the boy throwing the stuff, not aggressive.
Love it. We've all been there. I was sent to the principal's office every day throughout all of kindergarten, every single solitary day. My teacher would hand out everybody a red lollipop, which I'm allergic to red dye, so you can imagine. And would hand out a red lollipop to every kid and go, sorry, Becca, you didn't earn one. You were at the principal's. Every single, and I couldn't even earn one. I'm allergic. And every day she had the system implemented, and I would always go home without a lollipop. But yeah, they put me in her room because they ran out of room in the inclusion room. So they decided, instead of giving me the teacher that was certified for special ed and gen ed, that because my brothers, who are neurotypical, had this teacher, that I would be okay in the room and she'd be okay with me. It was my first time ever in a general ed classroom. I had been self-contained since then. And they threw me in a non-inclusion room with all gen ed kids with an IEP, a very loaded IEP, because I was literally self-contained the year prior, into this classroom with a non-certified SPED teacher.
I, earlier last fall, may have had a discussion with my kindergarten teacher, which she did not understand because we had, it was last fall, too. She was in one of these, I should be so excited. She wanted in tickets to get into an event, and she called me up going, can you get me in? Let me finish. And I'm like, why would I get you into an event? And she's like, well, you loved me as a kindergarten teacher. And my response was, well, you forgot that I was supposed to be in the deal to get the letters. Like every week we would bring in, clippings from magazines and newspapers. I am old. From what the letter of the week was, and we put them on these big poster board letters. I was in speech while they were all getting their weekly drawings to see who got to take home the letters. And she forgot completely until the end of the year when one of the kids was like, well, Amanda hasn't gotten one, and the rest of us have gotten like 2 or 3.
Oh, okay.
And she's like, that didn't leave a lasting effect. I'm like, I'm 43 and I'm bringing this up to you right now. And it's the stupid things you remember, like the lollipop or not getting the letter.
Yep. And that's PBIS, and it's still recommended by the federal government on both sides of the political spectrum. And it's also recommended by all 50 states' Department of Education. No matter how blue or how red the state is, all systems recommend it. So until it becomes a bipartisan hatred, it's not going away.
Oh, yeah, no. And it was the 80s, so it was even better in the 80s for all this.
Oh, yeah.
But I do like asking because we have some issues up in our state, which we shouldn't because, supposedly, oh, she's showing off her puppy real quick because he's laying in the sun. Can you explain to parents who are neurotypical listening to the politicians I am going to send this to in my state and go, hi, it's not just me saying it, shut up, you idiots, which I can say because I know them personally. It's a different subject when you know them personally, right?
Yes.
How important is an IEP and a 504 to these students?
Well, first of all, an IEP gives the student the protections they need, the accommodations, the modifications that they need to succeed. And it also protects them from teachers who suck and don't want to implement these things without it. Shout out to the teachers who accommodate regardless of an IEP and 504 and love you. Um, and then the 504 straight up just protects the student's medical disability. The if you don't have a 504, you're screwed. I think one of my biggest regrets was after I got off my IEP, they said, "You're good. You don't need any form of documentation." But I had medical diagnosed disabilities, and not having that protection in place led me to so much discrimination. And I could have probably sued so many times had I had that 504 in place because I dealt with harassment, bullying, attacks, all of it, cyberbullying, um, from 6th through the 12th grade. And had I had that 504 in place, I think first of all, my grades would have been so much better. I would have had the supports I need. Um, and I ended up almost going back on a 504 documentation midway through college because one of the requirements was us attending in a school for our student teaching that was all the way on the opposite side of town. And if you know how big Texas is, the opposite side of
Yeah.
town in a mega city is not 25 minutes. So they wanted me to travel from the far, far north side of town, all the way to the far, far southwest side of town. I'm on the northeast side. They want to travel southwest. Medically, I cannot drive highways due to overstimulation and a foot disability. So it would have taken me an hour and 53 minutes every morning just to do my free student teaching. I wasn't getting paid for it. And because I didn't have this documentation in place at first, they were like, well, we don't care. Like, you're going to have to figure it out, find a ride, do something. And then even once I did get it in place, they were like, well, the best we can do is only an hour drive.
And we live in Colorado. Our state legislature is a bunch of Democrats. And I'm like, currently, I'm not happy with any of you. We're also possibly due to funding issues cutting back on early intervention. Tabor is the dumbest thing ever. Anyone who wants taxpayer bill of rights, just don't do it. And you're not in a small town because my family's from Texas, to the point there are members of my family on a small building in your town because they died in that battle. That I'm not sure I would want to go all the way across town for my student teaching. Downtown gives me panic attacks driving downtown where you live.
Oh, and it was during rush hour because we had to be there by 6 a.m. So I would have had to leave my house at like 4.
Yeah, I'm lucky most of my family's still in the DFW area, but I hate driving DFW.
Yep, I'm San Antonio's.
Yeah, I had family members who fought down at the Alamo. There were family members of mine that were on the government during that time frame.
Oh, okay.
So it's a long history with Texas. We're the idiots who decided, hey, let's go try to beat the Mexican army. And then my sister married a guy who can trace his lineage back to the Mexican army on that point. But I wanted to talk about the books because the books, I mean, that is impressive. Can you talk? Because I noticed you have kids' books.
Mhm.
Do you mind talking a little bit about the books for the audience?
Sure. So my children's book is called Step Into My Shoes. It's about navigating your life in school as a special education child, and trying to form a social circle and communicate and have your peers understand you. And it kind of is based off my life and a few other kids I got to work with throughout my years. Um, I've been as a student teacher, as a volunteer, I've been working with kids for the last 10 years. Um, and then my other books are all more adult based. I have one that's more of an autobiography, and my story's featured in that, and that's Woman of Purpose Creating a Better World Part 1 by Shyla Day. And then I have my poetry books, which all are they're kid appropriate, except for one, I'd say. But if you're not okay with cuss words, it's definitely not child appropriate. But it kind of they go into poems and poetry that I've written. And then I have another book coming out March 25th. And that one is Autistics on Autism, which is stories of how we found ourselves and got to college.
We're going to need to link to all of that in our description below if you're okay with that.
Yes.
May have to have you back on after I read the new book you've got coming out, because that sounds intriguingly interesting to me.
Awesome.
I am just so excited that when I was younger, there was no one who was autistic at the table. We were told we weren't allowed at the table. And I'm just so excited that your generation and Leta's generation are at the table now talking. It sounds crazy, but we need our voices at the table. It doesn't need to just be the neurotypical people at the table.
I agree.
Trying to put this nicely, because I have friends who teach ed classes and are doc advisors in your lovely state, not to mention plenty of family members in your lovely state in education. Have you been able to get your book into the kids' books into libraries in your state?
I have. It is in a few libraries. And it's also in some schools and some classrooms.
I know some of my friends, because most of my friends and everything are over in El Paso. They're going to ask the question, does it come in Spanish?
My book does not come in Spanish. I am working with someone who is a dual language teacher to get it written in Spanish so I can publish that.
Leta's military, but most of her life she has spent in Las Cruces, El Paso area. So a lot of our friends are in, UTEP or University of New Mexico, or New Mexico State University. I almost said University of New Mexico. That's where my aunt was a librarian for over 30 years. You're just being quiet. You're like, I want a cussy word on a lot of this stuff. I've told her she can't curse on the podcast. The poetry. I always like asking poets because I dabbled with it as a kid, but got told it was stupid and gave it up. What is writing poetry like?
It's kind of my therapy. That's actually how I started writing. I had no intentions to write like long stories and things. My poetry is like my therapeutical outtake, I guess you can say. I feel like I kind of use that as a relief. This is one of my published poems. And it's graduating college with autism. And it kind of just like goes into that. But I feel like when I'm angry, when I'm stressed out, when I'm sad, I just write and then I turn it into a poem. I don't know if it's my autism or what, but everything that I take in, and every time I give advice, it comes out very poetically and song-like. And a lot of my poetry, when I first started writing it, when I was in 8th and 9th grade, I was struggling with depression. And a lot of my poems were very much based on what I was going through at the time. But I would listen to a song while I was writing, and I would take words and things from that song and just write that word. And I would like pain, and I would write a poem about pain. Or I had one of my favorite pieces by me is called Jacket Pain. And it's you not being able to physically want to show your body, whether that be due to self-harming or whether that be due to trauma or weight or however you interpret the words. But I had a professor ask me every day when I was in my jacket, she said, "Are you cold?" And she'd ask me that every day. And I did not get along with this professor. We had a terrible relationship because everyone else would be in like shorts and a tank top, and I would be in my jeans and a t-shirt with my jacket on. And she would ask me, "Are you cold?" And finally, I turned that into a poem. And it was like, "Are you cold?" And the premise of it was, I am cold, but I'm not cold in terms of the weather. I'm cold in terms of my mental being.
I'm going to have to look that one up because I was trying to get permission to wear a jacket in middle school, but because I have severe anemia and circulation problems, so I was freezing. I was also going through anorexia, and that between not having enough iron and not eating enough. But going to lunch was, strangely enough, very traumatic as an autistic child. And I don't think the adults around me knew how much eating lunch around other people was traumatic. I know, Leta, you can jump up on the pizza one if you want to, because Leta had a speech therapist who made her eat pizza.
If any Italians are watching, yes, I do think pizza is evil. I'm sorry to any Italian. Yes, I just flat out think pizza is evil. That if you want to be mad at someone, be mad at those therapists. You can turn with those therapists.
She had a speech therapist because Leta has a texture issue, which is very common with autistic kids. She's screaming over there. But she was like, well, she's going to get bullied for not eating junk food, so we're going to make her eat pizza every single.
I got praised for not eating junk food because I don't stay out. Eat healthy.
But her speech therapist would make her eat pizza every single day in speech therapy 3 times a week to try and get her to understand the texture was okay. And then Leta would throw up on her. I don't know how that happened.
Okay.
I'm sure you have had plenty of therapists that were like, they'd like to do something stupid like this.
So, I've seen it in action. I had a speech therapist who used to, at the end of a session, our reward was spraying sour candy into our mouths. You can imagine that was my elementary school speech therapist, but she would come up to us and she would spray, sour candy into her mouth. And I mean, we had to ask for it. It wasn't like just a threat, but I'm like, I don't think this is a reward for anybody with like to me, like that was not an incentive. But she would say open and she would spray the sour candy into her mouth. And every time we would get something wrong, she would threaten to take this spray away. And it was like used as like this sour spray candy in our mouths was used as like this threat over our heads. And it's funny because I went to that campus a few months ago and they were like, yeah, she's retired. And I was like, oh, wow.
That's probably a good thing. Her speech therapist that did the pizza thing had been a speech therapist since the 70s. And she's like, well, this worked in the 80s. And I'm like, we're a little bit far removed from the 80s. But there's not a lot of good papers on texture issues and eating with autism. I know she also had the absolute worst thing to have to go to physical therapy because she's got a bad hip. And so they were actually medical physical therapy. And that poor therapist, he's like, I feel so bad. She can't have fun in this physical therapy because it's, adult rehab on a 6-year-old. And I think he was her best therapist because he was the most empathetic about it. And he was always like, they were only supposed to get the treasure chest like once a month. And he's like, you made it through. I don't care if you're crying. Go grab the treasure chest and go get like stickers or whatever. And some of the other therapists were like, but she's crying. And he's like, have you ever rehabbed a bad? Her hip does not do ball, and it's not a ball joint anymore. It was popped out of joint at 11 months. Or like, maybe it'll grow back in. Fun fact, it did not. And so it's like halfway in, halfway out of her hip joint. And he was the absolute best therapist because he had so much empathy and compassion going, there's no way I can make this fun. I have to move that hip joint. I have to make you do this hard work. And I'm like, could you talk to the other therapist in the building real quick? As a special ed teacher, you get to work with the therapist in the school system. Have you ever wanted to just sit them down and go, hi, stop it?
Yeah. So, our speech therapist is amazing. I love her to death. She's a hero. And so is the one that I had before her. My, the only thing that I've seen is sometimes how rushed therapists want IEPs or how far out they want IEP meetings planned. A lot of them are like, we need 6 months to make sure that we're writing the goals for the next IEP. And I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing in 6 months, bro. I don't even know what I'll academically know in 6 months, let alone these children. Like, dang. And so I get a little bit annoyed with that. But on the other hand of things, the OT system in public schools here in Texas, I can't speak for everywhere. They come for 20 minutes. They tell people to play with Play-Doh to straighten their hands, throw all the stuff at me, and then leave. And they go, you can do it. You got it. Here, so this is how you do it. This is how you work OT. Yep, bye.
She, thanks to Brevard County not giving her therapy because she didn't have speech, so she didn't qualify for speech therapy. She's always been in the private therapy sector. And we have had OTs that were like, well, I mean, I don't know what to do because she needs more intense therapy than I can give her. She had one private OT who was like, well, she's got the life skills. She just needs me to teach her like how to hold a pencil. And the therapist was like, I don't know how to teach. This was private therapy in New Mexico. And they were like, I don't know how to teach her the small motor skills, but I can teach her how to make mac and cheese in the microwave.
Oh.
And I was like, hi, not trying to be mean, but she might need to be able to hold a pencil at some point in time in her life.
Yeah.
She's like, it still hurts. But that was how she got out of OT in Las Cruces. Was they were like, well, I mean, she can't like hop, she can't skip, she can't jump, she can't hold a pencil, but she can make mac and use a microwave. So what do you need us to do?
Yeah, a lot of students don't qualify for OT in academic settings. So I kind of do a lot of the pencil stuff myself. Like, I'm like, hey, let's try out these writing tools. Which one do you feel like most using? And so I have kids who have no OT, who don't even have diagnosed things, who are, using thick pencils with the sides that are, more triangular. I have kids using those giant thick pencils. I have other kids using pens. Like, I have other kids using like a pencil that I injected into a marker. Like the lead is like injected inside of a marker. Like, whatever works, man.
I love it. Hers has always been like her neurologist and her developmental pediatrician's like, I need you to do this. And the therapist is like, I don't know if I can do this. And I'm like, I don't know if you've looked at the hierarchy lately, but therapist is down here, neurologist is up here. And then they're getting her out of therapies, and her neurologist is calling the insurance up going, why is my patient not in therapies? They're also my favorite to bring to IEPs because I've got a working relationship for a few of them in their area. And when I'm advocating for other people, I'm bringing their neurologist in. And I've decided school admins just don't know how to deal with neurologists because neurologists do not have a bedside manner.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been in an IEP meeting with the neurologists or the developmental pediatricians.
Yes. I have.
They're fun, aren't they?
Yes. Yes, they are.
Well, we're getting up on the 50-minute mark, and I want to make sure we get where people can find you online. And maybe here in a few months, if you're okay with it, I might reach out and have you come on and talk about your books and everything again.
Sure.
Where can people find you online?
My Instagrams are Stitches Stanzas, like knitting with stanzas, like the poetry. And then I have another Instagram, which is my personal, where I go on tangents about the Department of Ed, which is RE02.20. And then I have my Facebook page, which is Rebecca Engle, where I also go on tangents about our current state of education and share random things about my life.
The current state of education is interesting, to put it politely. We may have to have you on just to talk about the current state of education too,
Sure.
especially if these IEPs, because we definitely need IEPs and 504s in school, and I don't know why anyone would want to try and get rid of them.
Yep.
All right. Well, we will let you go. Have fun. Thanks for coming on, Rebecca.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
And all that description's going to be in the all that information's going to be in the description below. I am having the worst ADHD day currently.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Thank you. Leta, can you say thank you for coming on?
We have a chubby people.
She's put on her pity today. All right. Thanks.
Hello. Thank you for watching the podcast. Please subscribe and also look at the adorable people. Just to also subscribe for it and also please the text. And don't forget to give the subscribe if you are with any other new podcast with you. And also you can see the adorable people. Just like it.